today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I'm broadcasting this lesson to you from beautiful Budapest, Hungary. Today we are focusing on the listening section of the exam, specifically sections 3 and 4 of the exam, so the more challenging sections. As you can see, we have our mascot behind us cracking the IELTS acronym. You can order that image on shirts, shorts, hats, mugs, cell phone cases from our YouTube channel and our merchandise. And half of the money that we get from those sales, we donate to less fortunate IELTS students around the world. So it's a good way to support your fellow students who are doing the IELTS test. Materials for today's class, they come from our websites, aehelp.com for academic IELTS, gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. Just put those URLs up here so you can check those out anytime. gielts help for general. And you can use the code LIVE20, LIVE20, for a 20% discount on those websites. Good to see so many students joining in. Hi Pachu, hi Kyber, hi Kung Fu Chanel, hi Chinky, hi King of COC and Igul, Yusinova, hi, how are you doing? Lanthiu, good to see you in class as always. For Dobbs, our new member, awesome, you're here too. Okay, students, so if you want to get hard copies of our exam books, you can get them from your Amazon bookstore. Search for AE Helps Academic IELTS or GE Helps General IELTS, and then you can have them shipped to your home. This week we have live classes every day until Saturday, and we have 2 classes on most days. Let's get right into our listening. So we are using exam 6. This is our second book, and we're looking at section 3 for this listening. Okay, students, so let's do this together. We're going to get right into the listening. I'm going to play the audio from our website. You will have a chance to answer. I'm just going to ask you to please hold your answers from the chat, so write them down in a separate document or on a piece of paper. Give everybody a fair chance to answer on their own, okay? Kyber, if you want to buy this beautiful shirt that I have on right now, you can order it in many colors and styles from our Teespring merchandise store, which you can access through the YouTube channel. Chris, send me an email. You can get our course using Western Union as well. Okay, so I'm going to play the audio. I'm just going to hop over to our academic website here. So I'm logged in to our academic website. I'm going to just go into my student account here. Once I'm in my student account, I can open up the audio CDs tab. And this will be CD 6. It is exam 6 for those of you who have our full course or our premium package. And it will be tracks 3 because it's section 3. Now this is a challenging listening. It's a section 3. So pay careful attention, do your best, and then we will go through it together at the end, okay? So don't panic if you don't get all of the answers correct. We will go through it together step by step. Okay, again, students, please do not write answers into the chat, just on a piece of paper. We will do it together after. Here we go. I have max volume. I'll just double check that on my side. So if it's quiet for you, please turn up your volume and use a headset. Here we go.
Now turn to section 3. Take some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Listening, Section 3. You will hear a radio host and his guest discussing the virtues of various art forms. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Our next guest is the curator of a major art gallery in the city who has just released his second book on the virtues of art. We're pleased to have Mr. Edgar Patterson here today. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here, and please call me Edgar.
Edgar, of course. Now, in your first book, published 4 years ago, you focused on performance artwork such as plays, musical concerts, films, and other such works. Your second book is a little closer to home for you. It concerns purely creative fine art.
Well, yes, it deals with the aesthetic virtue of different painting styles.
Okay, so give our viewers a quick rundown on what your book is about. Does it make an argument? Does your book take a position on a certain issue in the world of art?
Yes, my book does take a position, and a rather radical one. The main thesis of my book is that the meaning we associate with a painting exists purely within ourselves. This is in stark contrast to many commentators who believe that the author of a painting gives the painting its meaning. Under this framework, if an artist intends his painting to represent the fear of an orphan child, then this is the one and only meaning such a painting can have. We might call this the intention theory of art. Conversely, my theory is that no matter what the intention of the author is, the meaning of the painting comes from the viewer. The meaning is exactly what the viewer thinks it is. This solves an important problem with the intention theory of art, namely that we do not have access to the mind of the artist, and therefore we do not have access to the painting's meaning at all.
Very interesting, Edgar. But doesn't the intention theory work as a sort of grounding for artistic analysis? What I mean is, while we might not know the meaning the artist intended, isn't the point of art to try to discern this meaning? If art is just whatever we want it to be or feel it as, doesn't that somehow make it less valuable?
That's an astute critique of my position, but one I have an answer for. My response is that art is not merely what we want it to be or feel it as. We can still participate in our critique and interpretation. All I want to say is, in the end, it is up to us to discern the meaning and value of paintings on our own.
You now have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 27 to 30.
Now, let's talk about one type of controversial art, abstract art. How does can I call it a subjective theory of meaning?
Yes, that is fair.
Okay, how does your subjective theory of meaning apply to something like modern or abstract art? Art which doesn't tell an obvious story or have a clear meaning. Many people think that such works of art have no meaning at all.
It's certainly an interesting case, but one which my theory is well matched to deal with. You see, abstract art has its critics. Like you say, they think it has no meaning at all. However, other people think abstract works of art have all sorts of meanings. Now, under the intention theory, most of these commentators will be wrong, since the work of art either has a meaning or it doesn't, and if it does, then it only has a single meaning. So under the intention theory, only those critics who discern the specific meaning of the artist will be successful. My theory, however, results in each critic being correct in their own way. For example, if, after critically analysing a certain abstract work of art, I determine it is meaningless, then it is meaningless. Because the meaning of an artwork comes from within, I cannot be wrong, and neither can other people. The critic who sees a metaphor for suffering and the critic who views it as something entirely different are both right. We are all correct in our interpretation, as long as we've given the painting a fair critique.
What do you mean by a fair critique?
Well, I mean it is not enough to merely look at a painting and write it off immediately as meaningless. One must go through a certain process. That said, there are certainly other...
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
All right, students, and always take that half minute to check your answers. Here we go. All right, so I'm just looking at June Latour's comment there, who says the speaker should speak clearly. Students, remember, on the IELTS exam, you will hear British English. Do remember that in Britain, there are different accents, even within England, yet alone if we look at Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. So don't expect in the IELTS listening section for everybody to have a very, very clear accent. You have to be prepared to listen to a thicker British accent as well. In this case, the woman is Canadian with some New Zealand background as well, and the man is absolutely British, English British. So that is a common accent. Okay. Let's answer these questions as best as we can, and then we can look for some more help, and I will explain how. So let's look at 21 here. How many books has the guest written? Now, even though this might have sounded like a very difficult listening, keep it simple, okay? Oftentimes the answers are not quite as tricky as you think, okay? So, how many books has the guest written? Is it A1, B2, or C3? Kirti, Pachu, Aidana all say 2. Sana says 2. Just make sure that you put B in your answer sheet. So yeah, the correct answer for number 21 is B, 2 books. They say that a few different ways. They say it a couple times. So the speaker says that in your last book, you wrote about this. In this book, you write about something else. So last book 1, this book 2, right? So B. Yeah, second book is absolutely Mario. Okay, number 22. What description does the guest give his book's thesis? What description? So how does the guest describe his book? That it's a position, that it's a radical thesis, or that it's an intention theory thesis? Is it A, B, or C for number 22? One way to think about it is, what description does the guest give his book's thesis? Position thesis doesn't make sense. Radical thesis, that kind of makes sense. Intention theory thesis, that doesn't really make sense. So the best answer for number 22 is B. Okay? It's a radical thesis. And the woman even repeats that later. She says it's a rather radical thesis, isn't it? So B and B seem to be the right answers there. Okay? Now, with multiple choice questions in the listening, students, when you're doing multiple choice, you should attempt to answer the question on your own before you choose the answer. Don't just look at the options and think, oh, one of them will jump out. But instead, answer on your own, then choose the correct answer. So you have to be very careful with these multiple choice questions. I will give you some more strategies momentarily. Number 23, which statement best describes the intention theory of art? Now, this should be fairly easy if you understand the word intention. Intention means what a person wants to do. Okay? So your intent is what you want to do. It's your intention. Okay? So the author creates an artwork's meaning. The meaning comes from the viewer. There is no meaning outside of the viewer's intention. So in the intention theory of art, the best answer is A. Yeah, Farhan, good answer. So it's A. The author creates the artwork's meaning. So if you have a painting with a man throwing a ball, then the intention of the author, so what the author wanted to show in the painting, is a man throwing a ball. So it's the intention of the author, right? It's what the author wants to do. Keep it simple. Logic works here. Okay, so use your logic. Do not overcomplicate. So if you had A, that's great. All right, number 24. What is the biggest problem with the intention theory? So now, if you understood the dialogue until this point, and you understand that the intention theory means what the artist wants to show people, then this question will become much easier. And again, use the questions. If it's difficult in the 10-minute transfer time, use the questions to compare them to each other, right? So which statement best describes the intention theory? The author creates the art's meaning. What is the biggest problem with this intention theory? Sana Sohail says, well, then it makes sense that it's A. We do not have access to the mind of the artist. Sure. So if you're looking at a strange painting, it's hard to know what it is because you don't know the painter. You can't ask them. So 23 is A, and 24 is also A. And then that makes sense, right? The intention theory of art, the author creates the art's meaning. The problem with the intention theory, we do not have access to the mind of the artist. Okay? All right. So let's keep going. Trust in your brain, trust in your logic. Okay, those are some tips for you. Okay, question 25 and 26, write no more than 2 words. Always pay attention to that. And or a number for each answer. According to the host, one of the main goals in art critique, so analyzing art, is to understand a painting's something. So a painting's what? What do we try to understand? What's the missing word? And again, think logically, think simply. When we're looking at a painting, what do we try to understand? What is it that we want to figure out? What colors the painter used, what paintbrush, but even more importantly, Sushil Dital says we want to figure out the painting's meaning. Even if you didn't catch this answer from the listening, you can just guess it, right? According to the host, one of the main goals in art critique is to understand a painting's meaning, and the intention theory seems best equipped for this task. Why? Because the author can tell you the meaning of what it is. So Sana says, I just guessed. Yeah. And oftentimes you can guess correctly if you pay careful attention to the question. The guest responds that art is not something what we want it to be, but that we must also participate in critique and interpretation. Now, this here is a direct quote. What that means is this is exactly what the person says in the audio. They say, art is not what we want it to be. So this word you have to catch. Yeah, and Kirti says, yeah, that word was merely. I caught that word. Yeah, merely is another way to say just. Okay? So if you want to say just in another way, you can use the word merely. This is the correct word. This is exactly what is used by the speaker. Okay? So meaning and merely. Notice how it says no more than 2 words. In some situations, you only will have 1 word. You don't need 2 words. Okay? Oftentimes, one answer will have 2 words, but in this case, it's just 1 word for each. Okay, we've got a few more questions. This was a table, okay? Here in this table, you had to pay really careful attention to understanding the difference between intention theory and subjective meaning theory. Intention theory is the author, what the author wants to paint or do, and subjective meaning is the viewer. Okay, the observer, what they see in the painting. So here's the situation. The critic thinks critically about the artwork and judges it to have no meaning. According to the viewer or the subjective meaning theory, the critic is right because any answer is right. So here you can tell that it's either right or wrong. So you have a 50-50. Even if you're guessing, you have a 50-50 in this case. So pay attention. Number 27, is the critic right or is the critic wrong for number 27? What is it? What's the right answer here? Is the critic right or wrong if they think about the artwork and decide that it has no meaning? Okay? Yeah, the critic in this case for 27 is wrong. Why? Because according to the intention theory, the author always has a meaning. So there's always some meaning to the art. So good for you for putting wrong. Okay, the critic does not think critically. Okay, so here it's thinks critically, here it's does not think critically about the artwork and judges it to have no meaning. The critic is wrong with the intention theory. And with the viewer, the subjective meaning, number 28, is it right or wrong? So what is it for 28? Is the viewer correct or incorrect? Yeah, it's again wrong. Because the speaker says that it doesn't matter if it's the intention or subjective theory, the viewer has to think critically, okay? You had to understand that they have to think critically, otherwise they're wrong, because if they're not spending time looking at the painting or the picture, it's not accurate to say that it has no meaning, okay? The critic understands the author's meaning. The critic is right or wrong. So if there's a painting of a man throwing a ball, and the viewer says, well, it's a painting of a man throwing a ball, are they right or wrong? They're right, absolutely. Yeah. If you can clearly see what the picture is showing, and you say, hey, that's what the picture is showing, then you're right. So it's wrong, wrong, right. Okay, we have a couple more questions here, or one more question. This is an inference type question. So this type of question in the listening means that you have to understand most of the speaking, and by understanding most of the speaking, you can figure out the right answer. So this is called an inference type question. That means that you get the answer by listening carefully to lots of information, and then you can figure out what is the right response. So an art critic is viewing a painting for the first time and wants to critique it using the subjective meaning theory. Determine whether the critic has satisfied the constraints of the theory with regard to his critique of the painting. Okay? Number 30, the critic looks at the painting for a moment and concludes from his initial impression that the painting lacks aesthetic value. So this means that the viewer looks at the painting for a moment, but no, it's not beautiful. Okay, so is it A, the critic satisfies the demands of the theory, or B, the critic has not satisfied the demands of the theory? A or B? Yeah, how Biovan and Tina and Ferdavs, all of you answering B, you are correct. Yeah, it's B. So B is the correct answer for number 30. Why? Because the speaker says that you can't just quickly look at a painting and say that it's not beautiful and there's no meaning. You have to look at it carefully, analyze it, observe it, and then you can make a true or give a true opinion, right? So the answer is B. Okay, I think, some students thought, wow, really, it's that difficult? Is that true? Is the IELTS listening exam this difficult for part 3 or part 4? Yes, it can be. And if we have some students who did the exam before, some of you are probably thinking, yeah, I remember I had a listening part 3 or a listening part 4 that was just as difficult. They were speaking that quickly. The topic was quite unique. So it's possible. Okay? I'm sure that some of you will say, yes, Adrian, you're right. I had a very difficult topic in my listening, very similar. So what do you do when you have such a challenging topic? It's abstract, it's not physical, it's about art. Maybe you're not a big art fan, you're learning the exam at home, you see this listening section. What should you do at this point? Maybe you only got a couple answers correct, so from the 10, you only got like 2 correct or 3 correct. What should you do? Sana says, first of all, don't stress. Yeah, definitely don't stress. There's no point. That will not help you at all. Don't get angry with the IELTS, okay? That will not help you. So don't spaz out and I hate the IELTS, I hate IELTS people, and so just take it easy. Anger is the enemy. Okay, but what can you actually do? So what can you tangibly do when you find a difficult section? And we've talked about this before. So if you come across an especially difficult listening section, number 1, don't panic. Do your best, sure. What else can you do? This is at home when you're studying. Aha, there it is. Very good, Farhan. I'm happy you remembered my advice from previous classes. Use the transcript. Sure, yeah. Go and look at the transcript. So use the transcript to help you learn new words and ideas, so that if you have a similar kind of topic or question in the exam, you'll be much more prepared, right? So use the transcripts. Find difficult words, confusing phrases, and question or answer origins. Okay. So let's do that. Let's take a look at the transcripts here. So the transcripts in our exam book for test number 6 are on page 163. Okay. So the transcripts means the actual script, the dialogue, and you can practice this at home. Okay. So this is what the transcripts look like. I'll darken it up so you can see it a little bit clearer. So here it is. Everything that they say written out, spelt out, letter by letter. Listening section 3, you will hear a radio host and his guest discussing the virtues. Virtues means the value of various art forms, of different kinds of art. Now listen carefully and answer questions. The host says, all right, welcome back, everyone. Our next guest is the curator of a major art gallery in the city. What's a curator? So what is a curator? When you see new words, definitely take some time to learn them. Tina, I'm really glad that you took the advice from the previous listening and started using transcripts. Fantastic. Good for you. Okay. Gadam, listening 100 times to try to understand is not an effective way to study. It takes a lot of time. Okay. It's not the most effective. So don't just study by repetition. Repetition is okay, but it is definitely not the most effective way to learn. Farhan says it's a person that's in charge of a museum. Yeah, it's the boss of a museum or gallery who decides the display pieces and exhibitions. Exhibitions. Okay, so a curator, it's a position, it's a person, it's the top or the head of a museum, of an art gallery, and they basically decide which art pieces or which objects to display in the museum. They're usually very, very educated people. They have multiple doctorates or PhDs. They know a lot about history, sciences, the value of objects, religion, culture. They're very, very educated people. They're very high positions in society in most cases. So that's a curator. So again, take the time, learn new words. Of a major art gallery in the city who has just released his second book on the virtues of art, we're pleased to have Mr. Edgar Patterson here today. Welcome to the show, sir. And then Mr. Edgar Patterson says, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here, and please call me Edgar. Okay. Now, with the transcripts, you can practice the dialogue in partners. So when you have these transcripts in your classes, your IELTS or English classes, create a little game. Do the listening on your own. Even record your speaking with a partner and then compare it to the actual audio. Okay? It's a great way to practice and improve your active listening skills. And then, of course, you can look at where the question answers are coming from. So now, in your first book, published 4 years ago, you focused on the performance artworks such as plays, musical concerts, films, and other such works. Your second book is a little closer to home for you. It concerns purely creative, fine art. So, first book, second book, how many books has the author written? For question 21, it's obviously B, 2 books. Okay, so again, the transcripts help you to figure out the correct answers and where they are coming from. Okay. All right, and then keep going through step by step, so understand where it comes from. All right, here's the next one. The next question was, what position does the author take in his book? He says, yes, my book does take a position, and a rather radical one. So there you have the answer for question 22, a radical position. Okay. All right. And then keep going. Make sure you clearly understand what the intention theory is, what the subjective theory is, and then after you go through the transcript, what should you do? So once you finish looking at the transcript, understanding the vocabulary, getting some clarity on the information, what should you do? What should be your step number 3? Dov says, try it one more time. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, try it one more time. Listen again. Definitely. And don't wait, students. So don't be like, I read the transcripts. I'll come back tomorrow and listen again. That's not terrible, but you should listen right away while the information is fresh. So you can be like, that's how they pronounce that word. That's how he explains the intention theory of art. So after you analyze and learn from the transcript, listen again. Absolutely. Okay? If it's still difficult, stop the audio and go back and listen again. Okay, good. So that's using the transcript when you have difficult passages. Okay, here we go, students. Let's do one more. We'll do listening section 4 together. Again, listen carefully, answer. Don't write your answer into the chat. We will go through it after. Give everybody a fair chance. Okay? So this is section 4. Section 4 is a little bit unique because you do not have a break. It's continuous for all 10 questions. Okay, so I have maximum volume on my side. If it's quiet for you, then use a headset and turn up the volume on your side, okay? So here we go with listening section 4. And do your best. Again, don't panic. Use your logic. If you miss a question, just keep going. You can come back to it at the end. Here we go. Back to our website for the audio. 3, 2, 1.
Now turn to section 4. Take some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Listening section 4. You will hear a lecture about road infrastructure and its connection to economic prosperity. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Roads have been connected to economic prosperity for millennia. The first roads were thought to have been created by repeated animal grazing and then utilized by humans as ready-made routes for travel between adjacent lands. These roads, evidence for which exists going back 12,000 years, were likely not connected so much to economic prosperity as to survival itself. These roads allowed hunter-gatherers faster access to greater swaths of land. The first paved roads were used in ancient Egypt about 4,500 years ago. Historians theorize that these roads were the first roads used for trade in our history. These roads also would have been used to transport items, such as building supplies. Though rivers were much more practical thoroughfares for the transport of goods, certain goods from certain areas could not be transported by boat, and this necessitated the creation of roads for economic reasons. The Silk Road, though not precisely a road, is one of the most famous trade routes in history. Composed of many types of road, the Silk Road stretched from China and Thailand in the east, all the way through the Middle East and terminating in Western Europe. These different routes of the Silk Road brought myriad items from the east to the west, including, of course, silk. This brought economic prosperity to China and surrounding regions for many centuries. The Silk Road was so valuable for commerce that it persisted for over 1,500 years. The Roman Empire was the first major manufacturer of a system of roads. At its height, the Roman Empire contained 29 major roads, totaling over 75,000 kilometers. That's enough road to go around the world twice. Notably, this is almost the precise total length of the modern United States interstate highway system. These roads connected the vast lands of the empire and brought an intertwined economic prosperity to the diverse regions of the empire. Furthermore, the roads were used for military transportation, giving the Romans a massive strategic advantage over their less advanced adversaries. Through the Middle Ages, roads continued to be built and used for trade and commerce, though technological advances were virtually non-existent. Though tar-based roads were used briefly in the Arab Empire in the 8th century, this technology would not take off for another millennium. Today, our roads and highways connect our communities, countries, and economies. They are the modern trade routes by which we are all connected to each other. The modern world would not be possible without the vast expanse of road infrastructure. One interesting development in the history of road infrastructure was the advent of underground systems. The first such system, the London Underground, opened in 1863. Such subterranean routes greatly increase the volume of human life that a city can sustain, thus increasing that city's economic output. London would not be a fraction of the economic powerhouse it is today without its underground rail system. The same can be said for virtually every other major economic centre. Underground systems are the next generation of economic generators. While roads move goods which create economic prosperity, underground systems move human capital, which creates further economic prosperity. What is the next great advance in ground transportation? Some futurists have theorized about a system of tubes propelled by air pressure or other means, which would transport individuals vast distances in short times. Such a system could move humans at unprecedented speeds, perhaps with an economic footprint far less than that of subterranean networks. Such tubes could even be built underwater. Imagine such a system connecting New York to London or Tokyo to San Francisco. It would be incredible. Whatever lies ahead for humanity, roads have gotten us to where we are, and they are very likely to play a prominent role in getting us to where we will be next, in one form or another.
That is the end of section 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
All right, and then students, after that half minute, you have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet from the question booklet. So you have lots of time here to think critically, look at your answers carefully, and pick up some extra points. All right, let's go through the answers together. Here we go. Question 31. What phenomenon created the first roads? So number 31, again, pay attention to the instructions. No more than 2 words for each answer. What phenomenon created the first roads? Farhan says that it was animal grazing, and Sushil Datal agrees that it was animal grazing, and I do too. It was animal grazing. Okay. Of course, spelling is important. So grazing spelled with a Z. Make sure you know how to spell these words. Graze is the verb for when animals eat grass. or trees or shrubs. So they're going along. As they go along and eat the shrubs and the trees, they basically create trails through the forests. So animal grazing. Okay. Number 32. Though roads were necessary for the transportation of many goods, what was a much more practical thoroughfare for the transport of goods in ancient times? So number 32, even more important than roads in ancient times, were, Khyber says rivers, Farhan says rivers. Yeah, not boats, okay, it's rivers. All right, not boats. Thoroughfare is another way to say route. Okay. So what was a much more practical route for the transport of goods in ancient times? A boat is not a route. A boat is a vehicle. Okay. So remember, thoroughfare, because it's thorough, through, right? Coming from through way. So rivers. Okay, rivers. All right, let's keep going. Here, you had to figure out which of these roads totaled about 75,000 kilometers. The United States interstate system, the ancient Egyptian road network, the ancient Roman road network, or the Silk Road. Is it 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, and is it 1 and 3? Is it 1, 2, 3, and 4? Or is it 1, 3, and 4? Which was the correct answer here? A, 1 and 3, all of them, or 3 of them? Hopefully, most of you are picking the answer A. Okay, so in your answer sheet, the letter A. The United States interstate system and the ancient Roman road network were roughly 75,000 kilometers. The Silk Road, the ancient Egyptian road network were not quite that long. Okay, so the correct answer was A. All right, 34, 35, choose 2 letters, A to E. So in your answer sheet, make sure that you put these in separate boxes, 34, 35. The order doesn't matter. What were the 2 benefits of the Roman system of roads? Economic prosperity for the city of Rome, increased mobility of Roman armies, rapid technological advances, the importation of luxury goods from China, broad economic prosperity for the empire. Which are the 2 correct answers? Khyber says E and B. Hong says A and D. Farhan says B and E. Yeah, and the order doesn't matter. You can say B and E, or you can say E and B. Okay, Hong, careful. It's city of Rome. This is not the city of Rome. It's the empire of Rome. So economic prosperity for the Roman Empire, not the city. Okay, and B, yeah, they definitely said the Roman armies were able to move along on those roads. That makes logical sense. Okay. All right, so B and E or E and B, doesn't matter the order. You had to get those 2. Okay. All right, let's go to the next set of questions. So here we have questions 36 to 40. And you had to, this is again an inference type question. It's a kind of a multiple choice. So applies to ancient roads, applies to subway systems or underground systems, applies to future transportation, or all of the above. Okay? Use your logic for this type of question. You can basically answer this question without listening as long as you pay careful attention. Increases economic activity. So increases money, export, import. Ancient roads, subways, future transportation. All of them or just one of them? What do you think? Yeah, logic should tell you that 36 is D. Absolutely. The Romans used ancient roads for economic prosperity. Subway systems move humans, which increases economy. And I'm sure in the future we will be doing that as well. So D, good. Okay, good. Responsible for the growth of modern cities. So which of these three is responsible for the growth of modern cities? Yeah, B, subway systems. They give the example of London, right? Future hasn't happened yet. Ancient roads, ancient cities. Subways are now, so modern cities. Pay attention to details. Good. Okay, used for military transportation. Used for military transportation. Ancient roads, subway systems, or future transportation? Or all of them? A, yeah, it's again going back to the Romans, right? So ancient roads, the armies moved on those roads. You don't really see that so much these days. We do see sometimes the military using roads, but most of the time they use airplanes, boats, other ways. So A is the best answer. We don't know about the future. Okay, 39, moves human capital. So moves people. Ancient roads, subway systems, or future? What do you think? What's the best answer? Moves human capital. We don't know about future transportation moving humans. Maybe. Ancient roads, the best answer, the clearest answer for 39, it's a bit arguable, but it's B, okay? It's subway systems. So subways move people specifically, okay? They specifically move people. D, you're kind of guessing on D. It wasn't clearly explained about C and A here. So B is the best answer. If you didn't get that, if you think D is arguable, it's not the end of the world. One question wrong. Number 40, will move humans at unprecedented speeds around the world. So the last one. Number 40, will move humans at unprecedented speeds around the world. Again, this should be fairly simple when you're paying attention to the future participle will. Yeah, C, of course, right? We're talking about the future. All right, students, that's it for listening section 4. How did you do? What kind of a score did you get? So how many did you get from 20? For those of you who watched from the beginning, did section 3 and section 4, how many correct did you get from 20 for these two sections? For doves, 15 is not bad, okay? So for section 3 and 4, if you can get 15, that's very good. Yassine, 19 is very, very good. Farhan, 10 out of 10 on section 4 is fantastic. 19, Kyber, it's great. Again, make sure that you can do that with an original exam. Hung, 12 is not bad, okay? 12 should be kind of like your limit, okay? Your goal should be to get at least 12 correct for section 3 and section 4. Remember, section 1 and 2, they're a little bit easier, so hopefully you can get 17, 18 correct on section 1 and 2, and that way you can get a strong band 6.5, even 7, okay? All right, students, again, you can order merchandise from our YouTube channel with our IELTS hero cracking the IELTS exam, and also make sure to visit us at aehelp.com for academic IELTS or gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. On both those websites, you can use the coupon code LIVE20 to get a 20% discount. 6 original practice tests, over 100 hours of video lessons in HD, of course, much higher quality than these live classes, and a fully interactive course for your phone, tablet, PC. Definitely worth investing a couple dollars to save a few $100 on having to sit the exam a second time. Thank you so much for watching. Again, remember to use transcripts for difficult listening sections to improve your active listening skills and your English. Bye for now, everyone. See you tomorrow, same time. We will be doing Speaking Part 1, Strategy and Practice. Much love to all of you. Have a great rest of your day. If it's late in your country, then I wish you a nice night with sweet dreams. Bye-bye.